It all began with a simple idea. People needed a better way to trade than, just swapping goats for grain. Around 650 BC, in a kingdom called Lydia, in what is now modern-day Turkey, someone had a rather brilliant thought. They took a lump of a natural gold and silver mix, called electrum, and stamped it. This stamp was a guarantee. It said, this lump has a certain weight and value. Those first coins didn't have human faces, though. Instead, they often showed pictures of animals, like a lion. The lion was a symbol of the Lydian kings. It was their mark of power, a royal seal that promised the coin's worth. This was the birth of coinage, a revolutionary step that would change the world of commerce, power, and identity forever. But when did a human face first appear on a coin? For that, we need to look at the powerful Persian Empire that conquered Lydia. For a long time, rulers were hesitant to put their image image on money. It seemed a bit arrogant, perhaps even godlike. The Persians stamped their coins, known as darics, with an image of a king. But it was a generic king, a symbol of the monarchy itself, not a specific ruler. It was a powerful statement showing a figure with a bow and arrow, representing the might of the Persian throne. This was a step closer, but it wasn't a true portrait. The idea of putting a living, breathing king's face on a piece of metal was still a boundary not yet crossed. The real breakthrough came with the Greeks. After Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, his vast empire was torn apart by his ambitious generals. One of these generals was Ptolemy I Soter. He took control of Egypt and wanted to make it very clear who was now in charge. Around 305 BC, Ptolemy did something radical. He issued a coin with his own portrait on it. He wasn't shown as a god, but as a man with a distinctive, recognizable face. This was a bold political move. It announced his legitimacy and personal authority to everyone who held the coin. He was no longer just a general. He was the king, the founder of a new dynasty. And his face was the new symbol of power. This single act by Ptolemy I changed numismatic history forever. It set a precedent that would be copied for more than 2 millennia. The coin was no longer just a piece of money guaranteed by a distant, abstract authority. It became a piece of personal propaganda, a miniature billboard that could travel across the entire kingdom and beyond. Every time someone made a transaction, they would see the face of their ruler. This direct connection between the king and the economy solidified his power in a way that no statue or proclamation ever could. The king was now literally in the hands of his people, a constant, tangible presence in their daily lives. Before Ptolemy put his own face on a coin, the Greeks had a different approach. Their city-states, or poleis, were proud and independent. Their coins reflected this civic pride. Instead of kings, they featured the patron gods and goddesses who protected their cities. Athens, for example, famous for its democracy and cultural achievements, put the goddess Athena on its coins. One side showed her helmeted head, a symbol of wisdom and warfare. The other side featured her sacred animal, the owl, alongside an olive sprig. These Athenian owls became one of the most trusted and widely used currencies in the ancient world. They were a symbol not of a single ruler, but of the entire city's power, wealth, and divine favor. Other Greek cities followed this pattern, creating a beautiful and diverse array of coinage. Corinth, a major trading hub, stamped its coins with Pegasus, the mythical winged horse. The city of Aegina used a sea turtle, reflecting its maritime power. These images were like ancient logos or national flags. They announced the coin's origin and guaranteed its value based on the reputation of the city that issued it. For the Greeks, the authority came from the community and its divine protectors. The idea of a mortal man, a king, placing his own image on a coin would have seemed like hubris, a dangerous arrogance that would surely anger the gods. Their coins were a celebration of collective identity, not individual rule. Then came Alexander the Great. His conquests spread Greek culture across a vast territory, from Egypt to India. The coins minted under his name were revolutionary. While he was alive, Alexander did not put his own portrait on his general circulation coins. Instead, he chose the image of the hero Heracles, from whom his family claimed descent. This was a clever compromise. It associated him with a divine and powerful figure, without explicitly claiming divinity himself. The face of Heracles wearing his signature lion-skin headdress became the most recognizable image on money throughout the Hellenistic world. It was a unifying symbol for a massive, multicultural empire. After Alexander's death, as we saw with Ptolemy, everything changed. The generals who carved up his empire needed to establish their own legitimacy. The coin portrait became their primary tool. Lysimachus, who ruled Thrace, put a portrait of the now deified Alexander on his coins, presenting himself as the rightful successor. Seleucus, the first Nicator, founder of the Seleucid Empire in the east, eventually followed Ptolemy's lead and put his own face on his currency. The coin transformed from a symbol of a city or a god into a personal statement of a king. It was a declaration that said, "I rule here now. This land and this money belong to me." The Romans, great absorbers of culture, learned the power of coin imagery from the Greeks. In the Roman Republic, coins were controlled by the Senate. They were typically stamped with images of gods, personifications of Roman virtues like Libertas, or portraits of illustrious ancestors. It was a way of celebrating Roman history and collective values. A living Roman's portrait on a coin was unthinkable. It smacked of monarchy, the very thing the Republic had been founded to oppose. This tradition held for centuries, reflecting a deep-seated fear of one-man rule and the desire to maintain a government based on shared power among the elite. The first living Roman to break this powerful taboo was none other than Julius Caesar. In the chaotic final years of the Republic, as he gathered more and more power, he took a step that shocked the traditionalists. In 44 BC, just weeks before his assassination, he had coins minted bearing his own portrait. He was shown realistically with his thinning hair and wrinkled neck in the Hellenistic style of a ruler. For his enemies in the Senate, this was the final proof that Caesar aimed to be a king. It was a flagrant violation of Roman tradition and a direct challenge to the authority of the Senate. His assassins might well have carried these very coins in their pouches as they went to murder him. After Caesar's death, his adopted son Octavian, later the Emperor Augustus, masterfully used coinage as a weapon in the ensuing civil wars. He issued coins celebrating his connection to the now deified Julius Caesar, presenting himself as the son of a god. He also minted coins that advertised his victories, such as the famous Egypto-Captor coins celebrating his conquest of Egypt and the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Once he became the sole ruler and established the Roman Empire, Augustus set the standard for all emperors to come. The emperor's portrait would now be the standard feature on the front or the obverse of almost all Roman coins. For the next 500 years, the Roman Empire produced a continuous gallery of imperial portraits in gold, silver, and bronze. These coins were the most effective form of mass media in the ancient world. They carried the emperor's image and titles to the furthest corners of the empire, from the misty shores of Britain to the desert frontiers of Syria. An illiterate farmer in Gaul and a merchant in Alexandria would both know what the emperor looked like. The coins announced new emperors, celebrated military victories, and promoted imperial virtues like peace or pax and prosperity or felicitas. They were a constant reminder of who held ultimate power, a daily dose of state-sponsored propaganda. While the Greco-Roman world was developing its tradition of ruler portraits, great civilizations in the East were forging their own distinct numismatic paths. In ancient India, the earliest coins, dating back to around the 6th century BC, were not round but irregularly shaped pieces of silver. These are known as punch-marked coins. They were not stamped with a single design, but with several small, separate symbols punched into the metal. These symbols could include geometric shapes, animals, or plants. They did not feature rulers. Instead, the symbols likely represented different authorities, perhaps local kingdoms or merchant guilds, that guaranteed the silver's weight and purity. It was a system of verification that was complex and uniquely Indian. The idea of putting a ruler's portrait on a coin arrived in India with foreign invaders. Following Alexander the Great's campaign, the Indo-Greeks established kingdoms in what is now Afghanistan and northern India. They brought their Hellenistic coin traditions with them. Around the 2nd century BC, they began issuing beautiful silver coins that blended two cultures. One side would feature a realistic portrait of the Greek king. The other side often depicted Indian deities like Vishnu or Shiva and included inscriptions in both Greek and local Indian scripts like Brahmi. These coins are fascinating historical documents showing a remarkable fusion of East and West and providing the names of kings who would otherwise be lost to history. Further east, China developed a completely different and incredibly long-lasting monetary system. For over 2,000 years, Chinese currency was dominated by a single type of coin, a round base metal coin with a square hole in the middle. The hole allowed the coins to be strung together for easier handling and accounting. Instead of a portrait, these coins featured written characters. These characters typically stated the reign title of the emperor under whom they were issued. For example, a coin might say Kai Yuan Tong Bao, which translates to the circulating treasure of the Kaiyuan era. This system emphasized the emperor's authority, not through his image, but through his word, his official reign name. This Chinese tradition of using text instead of portraits was remarkably stable. From the Qin dynasty in the 3rd century BC to the very last emperor in the early 20th century, the basic form of the cash coin remained the same. While the calligraphy style might change and the quality of the metal might vary, the fundamental design principle persisted. This approach reflected a different philosophy of rule. The emperor's power was seen as more abstract, tied to his role as the son of heaven and the specific era of his reign, rather than his personal physical appearance. It was the institution of the emperorship, recorded in text, that guaranteed the coin's value. With the collapse of the Western Roman Empire around 476 AD, Europe entered a period of profound change, often called the Middle Ages. The sophisticated and centralized system of Roman coinage, well, it fell apart. Early medieval coins, often referred to as Dark Age coinage, were really just a pale imitation of their Roman predecessors. The quality of the metal declined, and the portraits of rulers became, honestly, quite crude and stylized. Kings were still depicted, but they were often unrecognizable stick figures or simple busts that bore little resemblance to the actual person. The skill and artistry of the Roman mints were lost for a time, replaced by a more functional and, frankly, less artistic approach. A dominant feature of medieval European coinage was the Christian cross. As Christianity became the central organizing force in Europe, its primary symbol appeared everywhere, especially on money. The cross often dominated the reverse side of the coin, and sometimes even appeared alongside the king's portrait on the obverse. This sent a powerful message: the king's authority was divinely sanctioned. This fusion of royal and religious imagery was a hallmark of the medieval period, reinforcing the close relationship between the church and the state. The coin became a testament to the king's piety as much as his power. One of the most famous and influential coins of the medieval period was the English silver penny. First introduced in the 8th century, it became the backbone of the English economy for hundreds of years. For a long period, these pennies featured a highly stylized, forward-facing portrait of the reigning monarch. The design changed very little from king to king, making it hard to tell them apart without reading the inscription, which named the ruler. such as Henricus Rex or King Henry. This uniformity and reliability made the English silver penny a trusted currency not just in England, but across Europe. It was a symbol of the relative stability of the English monarchy in a fragmented continent. The medieval period was also marked by feudal complexity. It wasn't just kings who minted coins. Powerful dukes, counts, bishops, and even cities also issued their own currency. This created a confusing and, well, chaotic monetary landscape. A merchant traveling across Europe might have to exchange money multiple times, with each region having its own coins of varying weights and purities. This decentralization of minting rights was a reflection of the political fragmentation of the era. A coin in your pocket could have been issued by a king, a lord, or a clergyman, each using it to assert their local authority and control. It was a far cry from the unified system of the Roman Empire. The Renaissance, which began in Italy in the 14th century, was a rebirth of art, science, and culture, inspired by the classical world of Greece and Rome. This new spirit of humanism and artistic realism had a dramatic impact on coinage. Rulers, now viewing themselves not just as divinely appointed leaders, but as patrons of the arts and individuals of great renown, wanted their coins to reflect this. The crude, symbolic portraits of the medieval era were no longer enough. They wanted realistic, powerful, and flattering likenesses, just like the Roman emperors they admired. The coin once again became a canvas for masterful portraiture. Italian city-states and their powerful ruling families, like the Medici in Florence and the Sforza in Milan, led the way. They hired the best artists and sculptors of the day, men like Leonardo da Vinci, who is known to have designed coin portraits, to create their numismatic masterpieces. These coins were often large silver or gold pieces, allowing for incredible detail. The portraits were no longer flat and forward-facing. They were shown in profile in the classical Roman style, with every detail of their hair, armor, and facial features rendered with stunning realism. These were not just coins. They were miniature sculptures, works of art designed to project an image of culture, power, and sophistication. This new artistic standard soon spread across Europe. Kings like Francis I of France and Henry VIII of England embraced the Renaissance style. Henry VIII's coinage is particularly fascinating as it documents his life and changing appearance. His early coins show a handsome, athletic young king. His later coins, however, depict a famously broad, heavy, and imposing figure. One of the most remarkable coins from this era is the English gold sovereign, first issued by his father, Henry VII. It was a huge coin that showed the king enthroned in full regalia, a powerful image of majesty that was a world away from the simple stick-figure kings of the early medieval period. The Renaissance also saw technical innovations in minting. The old method of striking each coin by hand with a hammer was gradually replaced by new machinery like the screw press. This new technology allowed for greater pressure to be applied more evenly, resulting in sharper, more detailed, and more uniform coins. It allowed the artist's detailed designs to be reproduced with much greater fidelity. This combination of artistic genius and technological advancement elevated the coin to a new height. The portrait of the ruler was now clearer, more powerful, and more widely distributed than ever before, a perfect expression of the growing power of the centralized monarchies of Renaissance Europe. Some coins are famous not just for their design, but for the story of the ruler they depict. The Ides of March Denarius is perhaps one of the most historically significant. It was struck by Marcus Junius Brutus in 42 BC to commemorate the assassination of Julius Caesar 2 years earlier. On one side, it features a portrait of Brutus himself, a bold act of self-promotion. But it is the other side that is truly shocking. It shows 2 daggers flanking a pileus, a cap given to freed slaves. The inscription below reads Eid Mar, the Ides of March. It is a brazen celebration of the murder, casting the assassins as liberators of the Republic. This coin is an incredibly rare and direct link to one of history's most pivotal moments. Another coin that tells a dramatic story is the Gold Angel of Queen Elizabeth I of England. While her silver coins showed realistic portraits of her aging over her long reign, the angel was a special type of coin. It was a touch piece, believed to have healing powers. The monarch would use it in a ceremony to cure a skin disease called scrofula, or the king's evil. The coin depicts the archangel Michael slaying a dragon, a symbol of good triumphing over evil. By distributing these coins, Elizabeth reinforced the ancient belief in the monarch's divine, almost magical authority. Holding one of these coins was like holding a piece of royal and religious magic. Jumping forward in time, the coins of Napoleon Bonaparte are a masterclass in political imaging. When he was first consul of France, his coins depicted him with a bare head in the style of a Roman Republican leader. However, after he crowned himself emperor in 1804, his image changed dramatically. New coins were issued showing him wearing a laurel wreath, deliberately copying the style of the Roman emperors like Augustus and Tiberius. The inscription changed from Bonaparte First Consul to Napoleon Emperor. This clear and deliberate shift in his numismatic portraiture was a public announcement of his new absolute power and his imperial ambitions for France and all of Europe. A surprising fact for many Americans is that one of the most famous coins in Spanish history heavily influenced their own currency. The Spanish piece of 8, a large silver coin minted from the vast silver mines of the New World, was a global currency for centuries. It was legal tender in the young United States until 1857. The coin often depicted the Pillars of Hercules, the rocks on either side of the Strait of Gibraltar, with a banner scrolling around them. This image is believed to be the origin of the modern dollar sign. The face of the Spanish king on these coins was therefore a familiar sight in colonial America, a reminder of the global reach of European empires. As the age of absolute monarchy gave way to constitutional monarchies, revolutions, and republics, the role of the ruler's portrait on coinage began to change. In the 19th and 20th centuries, with the rise of nationalism, the monarch's image became less a symbol of personal, absolute power and more a symbol of national identity and continuity. The face of the king or queen represented the nation itself. The best example of this is the coinage of Great Britain. The portrait of Queen Victoria, who reigned for over 63 years, appeared on coins across a vast global empire. Her image, aging from a young girl to a stern, matronly empress, became synonymous with the British Empire itself. Today, many countries that are part of the Commonwealth of Nations, such as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, still feature the portrait of the British monarch on their currency. As of 2026, this means the image of King Charles III appears on coins used in multiple independent countries around the globe. This is a fascinating holdover from the days of empire. It functions as a symbol of shared history and tradition, linking these nations through the figurehead of the monarchy. The portrait is not a claim of direct rule, but a powerful symbol of a historical and cultural connection that has endured through centuries of change. In countries that became republics, the tradition of portraiture often continued, but with a different cast of characters. Instead of kings and queens, these nations began to feature national heroes, founding fathers, and symbols of liberty. The United States, for instance, after a brief flirtation with featuring an allegorical figure of liberty, eventually settled on placing portraits of past presidents on its coins. Abraham Lincoln on the penny, Thomas Jefferson on the nickel, and George Washington on the quarter are all examples of this Republican tradition. The portrait still serves to embody the nation's values, but it honors historical figures from its democratic past rather than a living hereditary ruler. Even in the 21st century, the era of digital payments and cryptocurrency, The tradition of putting a ruler's face on a coin remains remarkably potent. The euro coins provide a modern multinational example. Each member country of the Eurozone designs its own national side for the coins. Monarchies like Spain, Belgium, and the Netherlands all chose to feature portraits of their reigning kings. This decision shows that even in a modern, integrated Europe, the image of the monarch remains a primary and popular symbol of national identity. From Ptolemy I to King Felipe VI of Spain, the human face on a piece of metal continues to be a powerful way to communicate authority, identity, and history. The long and rich history of coins with kings and queens has given rise to one of the world's most popular hobbies, numismatics or coin collecting. For many, it's a treasure hunt that connects them directly to the past. Holding a Roman denarius with the face of Emperor Nero is like shaking hands with history. You are holding the very same object that a Roman soldier or merchant might have used 2,000 years ago. Each coin, with its dings, scratches and wear, has a unique story to tell about its journey through time, passing through countless hands and witnessing untold historical events. It transforms history from something you read in a book into a tangible object you can own. The appeal of collecting these coins is multifaceted. For some, it is the artistic beauty of the coins, from the exquisite realism of a Greek tetradrachm to the powerful majesty of a Renaissance gold ducat. For others, it is the thrill of the chase, the search for a rare coin, like the infamous Ides of March denarius, or a coin from a short-lived, forgotten king. For historians and academics, coins are invaluable primary sources. They can reveal the name of a previously unknown ruler, show the economic health of an empire through the purity of the metal, or document political propaganda in a way that written texts cannot. A collection of coins can be a miniature museum of economic, political, and art history. Getting started in coin collecting has never been easier. You don't need to be wealthy to participate. While rare gold coins of famous emperors can sell for millions of dollars, common bronze coins of later Roman emperors can often be purchased for less than the price of a pizza. These affordable coins still offer a direct link to the ancient world. Local coin shops, online marketplaces, and coin shows are all great places for a beginner to start. There are countless books and online resources that can help a new collector identify their finds and learn the fascinating stories behind them. It's a hobby that offers a lifetime of learning and discovery. Ultimately, the enduring popularity of collecting coins featuring kings and queens speaks to our fascination with power, legacy, and the human story. These small metal discs are monuments in miniature. They have survived centuries, even millennia, to tell us about the ambition of Alexander's generals, the propaganda of Roman emperors, the piety of medieval kings, and the pride of modern nations. They remind us that for thousands of years the story of power and society has been stamped in gold and silver, carried in the pockets of ordinary people and passed down to us. Each coin is a chapter, and an entire collection is a library of human history, waiting to be read.